Hi guys, this is Dormouse03, and this is my analysis of Season 4, Episode 13 of Person of Interest, entitled M.I.A. As usual, there will be spoilers, so you have been warned. This episode marks the end of the current trilogy of episodes that began with the possible death of Samin Shah. After a bit of diversion in the last episode, this one picks up with Root and Reese on the trail of the van that they believe held Shah. Although whether it acted as ambulance or hearse, we don't yet know. So there were two main plots in this episode, and I'm going to talk about them separately, even though in the show they went back and forth between the two. The first follows Fusco, as Finch provides him with a distraction from his grief and worry by giving him a number. When he follows up on the lead, he finds a dude who they say looks harmless, and I say looks like a serial killer. At one point, they refer to him as Maytag Man, so that's what I'll refer to him as from here on in, because I couldn't really be bothered to remember his actual name. While he's staking out Maytag, he spots Detective Silva, the undercover internal affairs officer who was posing as one of Reese's rookies a little while ago. I've really enjoyed all of the returning characters and overlapping storylines this season. It really feels like this interconnected web that shows us that these are not just random events anymore, but are all pieces in the chess game that's going on between Samaritan and the machine. And you never know which choices may come into play several moves into the future. So all of that was to say that it was nice to see Silva again, and she and Fusco made a pretty good team. This episode explores the juxtaposition of grief and hope, and it seems to ask the question of whether you can experience both at the same time. Fusco sees Silva as similar to Shaw and Carter, and he makes it clear that he really can't lose another friend right now. I mean, how could he when he's wearing his lucky tie? Come on, guys. In all seriousness, Silva gets herself into a bit of trouble, and Fusco shows up to tell her that her safety is more important than catching Maytag. They eventually do a nice job of setting him up and taking him down, though. This whole thing felt less connected to the main story, but something that Maytag said as he was dying intrigued me and made me think that it might be more connected than it seems. He said, "They swore I'd never get caught." And now I'm wondering, who are they? Everyone assumed that this guy was a contract killer for gangs, but I'm thinking that he could have been a hitman for Samaritan. I mean, who else would have the arrogance to tell someone that they would never get caught? Now, realistically, a lot of people might say that to a lackey that they hire, but for some reason it just feels to me like that might be more sinister than a gang war. Okay, so on to the main plot line. Reese and Root are investigating a small town that surely has a dark secret or two. As they track down the truck, we start to get some hints that there have been a lot of changes around town recently. Apparently the sheriff was involved in some kind of scandal, but he kept his job anyway. There's this guy who came into a fortune. There was a surgeon who was wrongly accused of malpractice. And the old mayor was, let's just say, ousted in favor of a new regime. All of this reeks of Samaritan playing games, and the whole time I was thinking that this little town is like Samaritan's own little nuclear test site. Like those little towns that were built just for the purpose of seeing what the potential destruction of bombs would be. Again, we see that humans are just rats in a maze to Samaritan, and it's actively trying to learn as much as it can about our behavior, probably to ensure that the rats are never able to rise up and tear the faces off of their master. That's some pretty scary stuff. Anyway, back to R squared. The duo try to get some info from the police, and of course the sheriff is as sleazy and unhelpful as they come. It was very satisfying to see Root knock him out and drag him upstairs in a bag that was so clearly not hiding the fact that they were dragging a body upstairs, and I thought that was pretty hilarious. The best conversation in this episode happened when Reese and Root discussed the theme of the episode, hope, by way of quantum theory. I can't tell you how happy my inner nerd was when Root explained Schrodinger's cat and briefly the concept of multiple worlds theory. This is the kind of stuff that makes my head hurt when I try to really think about its implications, but it kind of hurts in a good way. And isn't it an excellent metaphor for the dilemma presented in this episode of grief versus hope? Can you truly grieve when you still have hope that your loved one might still be alive? Can you truly remain hopeful when part of you is already grieving? This is why having a definitive answer is so important, because it allows us to settle into one reality or another. Straddling the line between life and death is an extremely difficult place to be. Then again, is it easier to avoid knowing the truth if you're afraid that the answer will be painful? Is the prospect of opening the box and finding your cat dead more horrifying than walking away and never knowing? To live in a place where both possibilities exist allows you to at least imagine that there is a world in which the cat is alive. So maybe that's enough. Okay, so philosophical discussions aside, things started coming together in the latter section of this episode, and we found out several key pieces of information. First of all, R² makes for a pretty effective information extraction team. Is it wrong that I really enjoy seeing Root torture people? I guess the fact that they deserve it makes it okay, doesn't it? I like that Reese backed up Root during the scene as well, because he could tell that the woman knew more than she was saying. I would also just like to point out that Finch's weak stomach is beginning to grate me just a little bit. I mean, I get that once you start deciding who is expendable and who is not, you're on a slippery slope to playing God, but come on, Finch. Things are not always as black and white as you would like them to be, and sometimes you have to be willing to step into that gray area, especially if it's for the greater good. Okay, so tangent over. Finch mentioned that torture is not the most effective way of getting information from people, and he's correct, to a degree. I believe that torture is not a great way to get information from trained soldiers or agents or the like. But it's probably quite effective with your average everyday person, and that's who they're dealing with at the moment. So anyway, they got the information on a manufacturing center and on their brunette friend. When they arrive at the transponder factory, they not only find microdots that could be used to track people via their belongings, but also neural implants. Let's say that again. Neural implants. The implications of that are huge. With neural implants, Samaritan could not only study someone's brain chemistry, as they mention, but also theoretically could send signals that could alter the signals in someone's brain. Imagine being able to turn off fear, self-preservation, morality, or even being able to rewire the brain so that certain behaviors are associated with pain or pleasure. Samaritan could practically control a person if that was used correctly, and if it was sophisticated enough, it could alter a person's thinking so subtly that he or she wouldn't even notice the changes. Think indoctrination, folks. Let's just say I'm pretty scared about that woman that they found. So, it's not a surprise that they didn't find Shaw. It was cool that Root got to activate rage mode on those agents, even if we didn't get to see it very much. I also loved Reese's final line to the lady who let all of this stuff happen. Taking orders without question is something that has come up before, and it's clear that it's a variable that can either make the control of society by Samaritan easy, or more difficult. When people don't question what they're doing, you walk a dangerous path towards something like a Nazi regime. So it seems like this is something that'll probably continue to be visited this season. So in the end, we get a recap of where everyone sits on that hope-grief scale. Finch is ready to give up trying to find the answer. Maybe he sits in the, I believe the answer will be painful, so not knowing allows me to keep what little hope I have camp. Reese seems conflicted, but above everything else, he's practical. The fact that they seem to have exhausted their leads for now will likely win him over to the let's stop looking side, at least for the time being. Root is definitely not having it. and it makes sense for her to need to hold on to that hope until she gets a definitive answer. The machine tells them to stop looking, which I find really interesting. Does the machine know what's happening and have a plan for later down the road? Has it written Shaw off as an acceptable loss because the odds of others dying in the process of trying to find her are too high? Based on our insight into the machine's thinking process from a couple of episodes ago, I don't really think so. More likely, the machine either has a plan that involves everyone giving up the search for now, or the machine knows that Root will react by going on her own, and this is beneficial in some way. I'm uncertain and conflicted, but I sure am excited to find out. Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the episode, guys. There's not really much else to talk about. By the way, did I mention that Shaw is freaking alive, people? So I really did not expect them to confirm that she was alive or dead, and the fact that they did is awesome. It sucks that she's captured and probably has one of those neural implants, but she's alive and conscious. I don't know how much of her we'll see due to the pregnancy thing, but at least we know. Way to not be coy, person of interest. Thanks for opening the box for us and showing us that our beloved cat is still alive and probably ready to claw out someone's eyeballs. So that's it, guys. The trilogy is over, and it looks like we're back to business as usual next week with a new number to save. Hopefully they continue the great continuity that they have going for them. This show continues to impress me every week. Let me know what you thought of this episode and what your theories are about how things will play out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next episode.